With an urgency to add more housing, what if we could cut down the time it takes to build it?
It bothered me that at the early part of the 20th century, people could order their first home from a catalog, and 100 years later, we're still building houses exactly the same way.
Modular and container homes offer alternatives, but are they as good as site-built homes?
I've had people go through our homes once they're complete and say, oh, is this a modular?
Modular multifamily construction is picking up, but modular single-family is not. One reason is that it's hard for manufacturers to expand as neighboring states generally won't certify the construction. Container homes also face red tape.
State building code is catching up on the container homes, but they're not all the way there yet.
Even so, there's a lot of optimism. Container and factory-built homes can also serve specific niches. Modular homes are going to Hawaii to house residents displaced by the 2023 fire, and a new Columbus village aims to serve the unhoused, the formerly incarcerated, and those recovering from drug addiction.
We stopped, we paused, and we looked to see what is the best home model that we believe that would embrace the dignity of the individuals we will be serving.
On this episode, we examine modular and container homes, looking at the limitations, the longevity, and how they can lift a community. Let's get into it. This is Brick by Brick, solutions for a thriving community.
Brick by Brick is made possible thanks to leading support from Deborah and Robert Chavez, Greater Cincinnati Foundation, and the George and Margaret McLean Foundation, with additional major support from AES Ohio Foundation, Lori Johnston, Murray and Agnes Seasongood Good Government Foundation, Diane and Dave Moshe, the Robert and Jean Penny Endowment Fund of the Dayton Foundation, the Robert and Adele Schiff Family Foundation, and more. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Brick by Brick, where we're highlighting solutions for a thriving community in Southwest Ohio. I'm your host, Ann Thompson. Modular is the process of constructing a building inside a factory and then assembling sections of it on site. This is different from a mobile home, also called a manufactured home, which is already assembled by the time it gets to the site and doesn't need a permanent foundation. For this podcast, we're focusing on modular homes, and then later we'll also talk about container homes. Again, modular is a home, apartment, or something else built in a climate-controlled factory and then trucked to the site where it's assembled. Dayton City Manager Shelley Dickstein told Brick by Brick she recently saw a presentation for a Columbus modular project.
And they are creating very large apartment complexes with their modular, just by bringing in the boxes and adhering and affixing the boxes and all of that.
A different company, AVA, says it can build a typical 100-unit apartment building in 3 weeks, but that's just to build it. Of course, you still have to factor in the on-site work, like underground utilities. Last year, apartment developer Greystar bought a Pennsylvania factory to build modular apartment buildings and looks to finish them in 40 to 50% less time than traditional builds. The global modular housing market is expected to grow from $104 billion this year to $141 billion in the next 5 years. Many see modular as a way to quickly add more housing. The U.S. is short 4 to 7 million homes. In Cincinnati, we've heard the gap is around 30,000, and in Dayton, it's more like 20,000. City Manager Dickstein says some modular homes were built along Patterson Road in Dayton years ago using a Vandalia factory.
Those were Unibilt, and they were the first modular homes that were done in the city. We haven't done a lot out in the neighborhoods yet, and I think largely it's because we don't have a developer that, is coming with them, because usually there's a developer that comes with that product, right? And we haven't had interest yet in the city for that perspective.
Developers tell Brick by Brick a stick-built home takes an average of 6 to 9 months. A modular home in Ohio, once it's connected to electricity and plumbing on site, is about 2.5 months. Some national numbers put modular housing only 2 months faster than stick-built, including permits. But Cincinnati developer Tamara Sullivan sees modular housing as a solution for vacant urban lots. Her company, InnovaLab Ohio, bought an Evanston lot from the port where she plans to put a duplex. It doesn't have a subsidy.
It's going to be a market rate house. Will probably go on the market between $350 and $375. That still sounds like an awful lot for a home, but it's a 1,600 square foot home that's got 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. The cost to build is lower. The speed to get them to the market is much faster.
One problem she's running into is the need to get approvals for each design if she builds in other cities. Sullivan is working with the state of Ohio for that.
What we need is a pattern book, and I'm working on that as well, where we have a number of models that are already approved by the state. It just, that part takes time. The key to success there is replication.
In Detroit, InnovaLab started putting modular homes on lots in 2017. Last month, it showed off 7 in the North Corktown neighborhood. The homes will eventually be sold through a newly created community land trust. One way to get a better understanding of modular homes is to go inside a factory that builds them. Brick by Brick drove to Unibilt, north of Dayton, the largest modular home producer in Ohio, to see what goes on inside the sprawling factory. President Barney showed us around. How many homes are in here?
We have about anywhere from 25 to 30 modules in here at one time. And then we have the completed ones in the yard waiting for delivery.
Our first stop is the very beginning, a building where they cut the wood with a pre-programmed saw.
So this is what we call our saw shop. Probably 95 to better percentage of our lumber is cut in this shop. Our component saw, we cut as much as we can. A component saw, it slides up and down these rails for different dimensions. We can feed deck package through here in about 15, 20 minutes.
When people take tours of this plant, what are they most surprised about?
Oh, boy. I mean, it's different elements. I just think, we're building in a kind of a more of a assembly line process. And I think some people come with the perception we've got this big building. We're just, have the house sitting in one spot and we're just building it right there.
That couldn't be further from the truth. Cranes move the structure from one station to the next. For example, at one place, workers do framing. Another, they put in insulation. They do electrical at another stage, and so on. Barney says it's not cheaper than a site-built home. The main advantage here is everything is built inside in a controlled environment.
We always say, do you buy a car? Do they dump a pile of parts out in your driveway and they assemble it in your driveway? No. And now with a home, you're buying the most expensive. It's the most expensive purchase you'll make in your lifetime. And when they site build, they dump a pile of lumber in the mud and it gets rained on and so forth.
Do the future homeowners ever come to check on the progress of their house?
Yeah. We encourage them to. We've had customers. I remember one gentleman that worked here in town. He would come here at least 4 days a week, and it was lunchtime from the time it started to the time the house was finished. Thing I didn't mention, the saw shop. So our overall waste is considerably less than you have on a job site. Even our sawdust, we have, we saw the conveyor belt in there. It gets picked up by a gentleman has a cattle barn or livestock barn or something. We recycle our offcuts on our wood is used for blocking. What we don't use for blocking goes in the dumpster, and a guy that makes mulch, allows us to dump, and he blends it into his mulch.
Unibilt also recycles its vinyl siding, wire shelving, and cardboard. One thing to point out is the single-story ranch isn't the only type of modular home you can build. Developers can stack any number of these boxes on top or beside each other to create multifamily housing and apartment buildings. Think Legos. Coming up on Brick by Brick, an estimated 1 million people worldwide live in container homes. A Fairfield, Ohio factory hopes to put them on the map here.
Step inside and see what a finished container actually looks like, and look at all the space it actually gives you.
Plus, a tiny house modular development in Columbus as Brick by Brick continues.
Brick by Brick is made possible thanks to the generous support of so many, including Rosemary and Mark Schlachter, the Camden Foundation, Patty and Fred Heldman, Dee Dee and Gary West, the Stephen H. Wilder Foundation, Judith and Thomas Thompson, a donation in memory of Frank and Margaret Lenhart, and more. Thank you. We couldn't do this work without you.
Amika Moore from Brick by Brick. Our new podcast is about finding solutions that will allow our communities to thrive. What does a vibrant and engaging neighborhood look like to you? Maybe it has more restaurants, coffee shops, and art galleries, more multi-generational park activities, or a livelier music scene. We want to know. Please go to the Brick by Brick show page on cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Just click on the green audience button and tell us what a thriving community looks like to you. You can also email us at brickbybrick@publicmediaconnect.org. Imagine big and wide. Get creative. We can't wait to hear from you. And thanks.
Welcome back to Brick by Brick. The growth of augmented reality and virtual reality is helping an increasing number of consumers visualize how they could live in a shipping container. Brick by Brick's Hearns Laguerre Jr. went inside a container home and is here to tell us more about it. Hey, Hearns.
Hey, Ann. Yeah, I consider container homes a unique approach to housing because of how functionally different they are to your concrete home or your average stick build. I spoke with the owner of a budding container home business, and she makes her argument of why container homes are better than your average home. We are used to seeing shipping containers as a mode of transporting goods by sea or land. They are also used as storage, but they could be used as the next means for building affordable housing.
I want to show you a little bit about shipping container homes and the versatility, cost effectiveness, and stability that they offer homeowners outside of your traditional stick frame houses.
That's Sandra Whitley. She'll be giving us a tour of her model container home located right outside the Warren County Career Center in Lebanon, Ohio. Sandra is the founder and CEO of House in a Box LLC, a development company that specializes in transforming containers into homes.
Step inside and see what a finished container actually looks like and look at all the space it actually gives you.
This single container is a couple of feet longer than two Jeep Wagoneers parked from taillight to headlight, and it's about the height of an NBA-regulated basketball hoop. Doesn't seem like it could fit the essentials of a home to me, but Sandra proved me wrong.
We've got full-size everything in here. As you walk in, you're gonna first come into your living room or your living space. The first finish we did is a shiplap finish. You have a front entrance and a rear entrance. And as you walk through, you'll come into your kitchen, which comes with full-size appliances. You have pocket doors. To the next room, you'll come into your full-size bathroom. Behind that, you'll have your stackable washer and dryer, or you can put them side by side. And as you walk through into the bedroom, you'll see that it fits a full queen-size bed.
With a container home, there is also an opportunity for some major cost savings.
We are at the Warren County Career Center. The average home price in this county is over $400,000. Rent is over $2,000. That's the average. For this, if, say it was a rental, $600, $750, because the cost of this unit alone is only $45,000.
What would you say a container home has that a stick build doesn't have?
Versatility. So I can take this 40-foot container. I could take another 40-foot container and put it perpendicular to it or parallel with it, either way. And I can run them, and I can just keep going in all different directions. The only thing I need is a support under each corner. Whereas a stick-build home, if I'm gonna wanna build weird stuff, I gotta have a lot of support on that, because wood can only go a certain dimension before it starts to bow.
And it's built to withstand the elements.
So because of their weight and their structure, a shipping container is made to go across the seas, stacked on top of each other in hurricane weather, in typhoon weather, any kind of weather that the sea is gonna offer it. A shipping container will take up to, like, I believe it's 120 to 140 mile-an-hour winds before you're ever even gonna move this thing.
And because of the uniform dimensions of containers, container homes are modular, meaning Sandra could make similar style homes in addition to the custom builds that she currently makes for her clients. However, she has a different goal for her business.
My ultimate goal is to help veterans. I'm a Air Force veteran, and I would like to be able to build these for veterans. I see what's coming out of our military. I've got family that went through things, and I want to do what I can, do my part. I can't do your mental part. I can't fix your body that got damaged over there, but I can make you live in a comfortable place that's accessible.
What would you say are some of your biggest hurdles when constructing a container home?
Government.
How
The
so?
government is our biggest hurdle. Getting that homeowner to talk to that county and say, hey, I want to buy this land, I want to put a shipping container home on. Nope, you can't have it. But once they talk to me and I say, no, it's not just a metal box they're putting out there. We're building it permanent to the ground. You know, educating those offices.
Dayton is an Ohio city that allows container homes, but there are a lot of regulations. City manager Shelley Dickstein is excited for their potential in Dayton, but admits the codes need to be revisited.
State building code is catching up on the container homes, but they're not all the way there yet. So for Ohio, as the state building code gets completely caught up, when they have all of that done, then they'll be able to, the container homes will be able to kind of take off in Ohio.
We're dealing with a housing supply issue all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think container homes could help fill that supply?
Without a doubt. If you're newly married, you're just out of college and you're entry level. How are you affording a $2,000 a month rent when a mortgage on that same size house is $1,000? If you're starting out in life, you shouldn't have to struggle.
Thanks, Hearns. I really like the motivation for Sandra starting this company. And I'm wondering what stood out to you the most about container homes? And also, do you see this as a viable solution to helping with the housing supply?
I'll be honest with you, Ann. Sandra made me a believer about container homes. The cost effectiveness, the versatility, the fact that it's storm resistant. You know, with the rising cost of building materials for homes, maybe we could look to container homes as an alternative material. However, the biggest hurdle is zoning. Sandra said there are counties that are still hesitant with allowing container homes. Also, a concern is making sure they blend in with the community. You could put a roof, shutters, a whole facade to dress up a container home and make it look like a normal home, but that kind of defeats the purpose. The money that you would spend for those things is the money that you're saving because you don't have to use those things for a container home.
A lot of considerations. Thanks for that, Hearns.
No problem.
The average cost to build a container home is $40,000 to $60,000, but they can go for as little as $25,000 with an average monthly maintenance cost of $100. Unlike a modular home, you can move a container home to a different location at some expense. It may be hard to get financing to buy a container home. The same goes for manufactured or mobile homes. Many lenders don't offer conventional loans for them. However, Fannie Mae does have something called MH Advantage for first-time homebuyers. Qualifying borrowers can finance up to 97%. This information and other facts are on our website, cetconnect.org and thinktv.org, if you want to check it out. The global management consulting firm McKinsey & Company says the modular construction industry needs to remodel itself. Less than 4% of current U.S. housing stock was built using modular techniques compared to 15% in Japan and 45% in Scandinavia. McKinsey senior partner Jose Luis Blanco studied the issue and says there are several things holding the industry back. One criticism is it treats buildings more like products than projects, and in some cases, those products are over-designed. Thank you for being on Brick by Brick, Jose.
Thank you for having me, Ann.
Can you elaborate?
This is actually like a very kind of like end-to-end continuum process that needs to be like perfect from the beginning to the end. And what I mean by that is you need to basically get the right design that people want to buy. You need to get enough pipeline of that design for you to basically set up a manufacturing facility and don't change that kind of manufacturing change every 2-3 weeks. And 3, you need to basically seamlessly deliver that on the field and being erected and constructed in a way that, maximizes the value of that kind of like compression of time. I'm actually an optimist in this kind of like journey where I'm seeing much more of the past kind of like 24, 36 months that I've seen ever before.
Yeah, that's good that there are improvements being made. You had pointed out that in some cases there's inefficient installation and insufficient capital.
The way companies actually operate is different than many other construction companies operate right now. I mean, there's much more upfront capital that is actually being required from these companies that actually do modular construction than the typical construction company that builds on site. You actually purchase your materials, up front. You need to do a lot of R&D up front. You basically need to do that kind of installation up front. And the reality is, if you actually don't get paid, so to speak, until the full kind of asset is being installed inside, then there's a little bit of like a cash flow problem when it comes down to these companies, right? And actually, specifically in companies that are trying to scale, that's actually a clear issue that over time we've seen. The other thing that you pointed out beyond capital is actually inefficient installation. I mean, you need to basically train the crews, you need to train the trades in terms of like, how do you basically install your system? Remember, when we talk about modular construction, we talk it is just one thing, but modular construction can mean panels, 2D panels that need to be assembled and actually on site. It can be 3D, like volumetric kind of elements that need to be erected, installed on site. And those 3D volumetric kind of elements can be steel frame, they can be like timber base, and they have different shapes, different approaches. The bolts, the joints are different. So there's a question about how do you also, on a local basis, develop a set of like installers, companies that actually work with these modular firms that are able to speed and are able to recognize that kind of like approach and basically install it as fast as they can. That takes time, and it basically takes discipline as well.
You say you're more optimistic about modular than you were a couple of years ago. I'm wondering, if you were speaking to the industry, what would you tell them in terms of how modular housing should be used? And if you're a factory building it, what do you need to do better?
So first of all, I think that the first kind of message for me is like, we're not talking about something that is a novelty anymore. This is the status quo and should be a status quo, right? That should be, if not the most common way in which we build, one of the most common ways in what we build. That's number one. I think number two is, this is not a zero-sum game. Like everyone wins, right? Specifically in an environment where we have like a real kind of like shortage of homes, where people feel the pressure around affordability, and when we have a real shortage of trades, right? So there's a win-win for everyone to basically embrace these new methods. And then the third one is actually probably we need to be starting talking a little bit about modular in a way that is probably more positive, to basically finally get rid of some of these kind of stereotypes from the past around aesthetics, around quality, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the three things that I would just put out there as the message is to continue to basically advance towards a much more modular future, if you will. Which, again, even that language I don't like, so a better construction in the future, right?
We've only scratched the surface. We have a link to your article at cetconnect.org and thinktv.org. Thanks for being on Brick by Brick, Jose.
Thank you so much, Anne.
We pivot to talk about a unique modular development in Columbus that features tiny homes. A similar plan is in the pipeline for Dayton. The Columbus development is called Vista Village and features 41 homes that are only 420 square feet with a bed, bath, kitchen, a living room, and even a porch. The organization's Harvey Hook talked about it last year at the Columbus Rotary Club.
Our model will serve those who are homeless today and those who are on the precipice of being homeless tomorrow. Those on the precipice of being homeless tomorrow are teenagers and young adults aging out of foster care.
The homes will also serve men and women returning from incarceration, veterans, and those involved in substance abuse recovery. Hook says part of the goal is to normalize Vista Village as much as possible.
Many times, our social service sector addresses the needs of these individuals in their own silos. We believe that the ultimate goal is to transition to employment, independent functioning in the broader community in 18 to 24 months. Why not begin that socialization?
Unibilt, the modular home company Brick by Brick toured, is building the homes. There's even a community center to do laundry and receive wraparound services. Remember, if you want to learn more about modular and container homes and housing in general, there are plenty of resources, including web articles, video and audio stories, and online extras. Go to cetconnect.org and thinktv.org. And while you're there, click on one of our big green buttons to give some feedback or answer our current audience question. We'd really like to hear from you. Modular and container homes are the topic for the day, and we've gathered the team together for the takeaways. And we welcome to the microphone Emiko Moore.
Hey there.
And Ernst Laguerre Jr.
Hey, everyone.
Emiko, what are you thinking?
The big takeaway for me is the speed in which they can build these modular and container homes when certification is not an issue. For builders, time is money. There's labor costs and interest on loans. So if you can shave off anywhere from 2 months to several months of time per home, that potentially can save a lot. In addition, construction in a controlled environment, there is less impact by varying weather conditions and temperatures, which better protects the building materials.
And Ernst, you mentioned weather for container homes.
She was saying that, you could build container homes and with the proper foundation, they can withstand high winds because they're airtight. They can withstand flooding to a certain point, and how these homes were built for circumstances like that. So I look at them not only as maybe a solution to the housing supply, but an answer to combating natural disasters.
Good point. In terms of modular, the question really is, can you build modular housing quick enough to make a difference in the housing gap? Well, modular construction industry observer and information gatherer Gary Fleischer says never. With over 800,000 projected new home starts for last year and modular home factories building just about 2.5%, what it would take to just build 10% of that total, he says, is incomprehensible. But on a more positive note, because I do like to be positive, commentator Jordan Rogrove says encouraging the passage of 2 bills making their way through Congress that would alter the language of the HUD rule to include a wider array of modular and prefabricated structures, this would encourage innovation and competition.
Awesome.
And I really like to hear how Unibilt helps recycle and repurpose so many of the building materials, keeping them out of the landfill.
That is what really attracts a lot of people to this, is the sustainability idea. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Thank you.
Coming up on the next episode of Brick by Brick, 2 city leaders are focused on one issue for a special Brick by Brick episode: housing solutions in Cincinnati and Dayton.
My hope is that I will have the support of the rest of the members so that we can get something passed. The Housing Trust Fund is definitely needed.
Putting $10.5 million in. We've got a number of housing projects in the pipeline.
Hear what Dayton City Commissioner Shanice Turner-Sloss and Cincinnati Councilmember Jeff Kramerding have to say about what the 2 cities are doing and what is still needed. That's the next Brick by Brick. That's our show. If you like what you hear, please rate and review our podcast. It makes it easier to find. We hope you learned something, and if you did, please tell your friends and family about it. For Ernst Laguerre Jr. and Emiko Moore, I'm Ann Thompson. We'll be back soon with more solutions. Take care. Our show is produced, hosted, and edited by me, Ann Thompson, with reporting and story editing from Ernst Laguerre Jr. and Emiko Moore. Our executive producer is Mark Lammers. Our show consultant is Gloria Skursky. Gabe Wimberly is our audio engineer and mixer. Zach Kramer runs the lights and cameras. Derek Smith is our production specialist, and Jason Garrison is our production manager. Kelly May heads up our marketing and promotions, along with Mike Shea and Bridget Dillenberger. Alyssa Stephenson handles the website, and Steve Wright is our designer. Bill Dean and Andreas Kruja are the engineers for the show, and our chief content officer is Colin Shenamblo. Our music is from Universal Production Music. Brick by Brick, Solutions for a Thriving Community is a production of CET and Think TV, Southwest Ohio PBS member stations.